they should think of these tools like they're a scientist and it's your laboratory, because now you're able to run experiments. That loop is faster than ever. And our ability to create experiments and then validate those experiments is faster than ever. And so it's like, okay, 2026 should be about how can you experiment more and how can you think of your job less as like, just going to solve the problem that this ticket is asking of me, and more so think about how can I experiment with different problem sets now that I'm able to, maybe do 6 or 7 different implementations and then pick the best one. Like I think I want to try to reframe people's thinking about their approach to this job and more of that scientific aspect now that we have tools like this. Hello, everyone. I'm Dallen Pyrah. Today, we're going to be talking about 2025 and what happened in AI and the agentic space, and then give our predictions as to what's going to happen in 2026, along with maybe some opinions on what agent native architectures and development will look like. So I'm here with Tristan, and we'll be going through over the next hour, just talking about the specific topics and things that happen in 2025. So anything you want to say, Tristan?
Yeah, I'm Tristan Johns with Time Tec, and I'm excited to have the conversation.
Sweet. Well, I guess we could get started as maybe we can start talking about what happened in 2025. And maybe the first thing that I think blew both of our minds was Claude Code wasn't around a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of felt like it's been around forever. Like it's changed so many things that it's felt that way. But really, I think it's only been around 8-9 months, at least to the general public. So, I mean, what has it changed in your workflow? Because I know it's changed mine dramatically, but
one of the first things it's changed is that I'm not opening files as much as I used to. I have people come to me asking about like, what IDE should I use to like review the code or anything? But if I'm in Claude Code and I want to know about the code, I can just talk to it and it'll reference files. And if I need to go deeper, I can open them up. But really, I can do everything in the terminal. And I feel like that's unlocked so much productivity that I wouldn't have expected 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's weird going back into the terminal after moving away from it. I feel like IDEs were that next step in the evolution, and now it's like we're going backwards in that evolution. So, I mean, that's kind of weird. I wasn't really a CLI guy or a terminal guy, just because I had all of these natural tools that I could use in like VS Code or Zed. But now I'm like getting into Tmux, trying out a whole bunch of different CLI tools, like building CLI tools. I mean, it's super easy to build CLI tools with AI now. So, I mean, it's become a big part of my workflow as well.
I think one thing I really appreciate about the command line interface is that it's very minimalist and focused. So really, I don't have to be distracted by all the different like directory structures or anything like that. I can just think, what is the immediate problem at hand and how do I describe it in natural language? And I think because the CLI is just purely command-based, it's just language-based, I think that agents work very naturally in that environment.
Yeah, it's just text.
It's just
at the
text,
end of the day,
yeah.
yeah. And I've been thinking about like, okay, it's really easy for an agent to work in a code base because it's all just text. And I mean, you can glob, you can LS, you can use all of these tools to figure out what you need to do. But like once you start getting into tools that access APIs or databases, the other day, like I think yesterday, I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I create like glob or grep type tools for an agent to discover data in a database, but make it safe. And so I think a lot of thinking now is, okay, Claude Code did something really good. It's like a once in a generation type product. And I think a lot of those principles we should probably take into building other agents.
Mm,
Because a lot of the times you could probably, like, honestly, a lot of people are just taking the Claude Code SDK and slapping their API keys in,
sure.
and you can build an entire product off of that
Yeah.
and never tell anyone that you're using Claude Code under the hood.
Yeah.
So, if you're trying to build a company, maybe you think about that first, then rather than trying to go build your own agent.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's already built it for you. So, I feel like in 2026, maybe we should think more about, do I actually need to build this from scratch, or can I just take agent implementations off the shelf and build my company that way, or build a product that way?
Yeah.
I think we don't need to rebuild these implementations from scratch. We already have the abstractions.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few thoughts there. I think the first thing you said was like, it's just text, really. And I think that was one of the things that surprised me most watching Claude Code develop was Anthropic consistently created new architectures that unlocked new features from Claude Code. But a lot of these features were just like markdown files and structuring text in very specific ways. And I think you make a really good point about not reinventing the wheel. I think most recently I've been thinking more and more about Claude in a non-interactive format. It's like Claude Code in the terminal is the interactive version where you can have back and forth conversations. But there is a lot to unlock with just including Claude in your pipelines or in reusable scripts.
Even like including Claude. I've thought about including Claude in the stop hook of Claude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You could have a recursive Claude calling Claude forever. Or like there's even the agent SDK like you're saying. Um, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of different models that come out, and I think you want to try on different models. You don't always want to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the models themselves is what is important. Um, each new model that comes out, I think, strips away some of those layers that people built into their architectures
Mm,
to account for the model not being able to do things properly. I think I've talked about this, but rules in like a Claude MD file or hooks that lint and type check after it makes a change to a file. I think that's a limitation of the model currently, where we always have to remind it to do
mm,
that. But a year from now, if they can figure out making sure that it actually does those validations properly and actually follows the rules, we don't have to have those like architectures in place to make
mm-hmm,
sure the model is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so I
mm,
think like every new model that comes out will get better and better at that. And stripping away your complex architectures is probably more beneficial than keeping that model in this like this architecture that was meant for GPT 3.5.
mm-hmm,
Like Opus 5 is going to be a lot more capable and is not going to need as much hand holding as GPT 3.5
mm-hmm.
was and needed. So that's why I'm like on the project I'm building currently, I'm using Vercel's AI SDK. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to build all of the streaming implementations, the stop
Yeah.
hooks, the use chat hook in React. I don't want to have to build all that out. I just want to be able to like swap in and out
Yeah.
models and try things.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not doing something like entirely innovative, there's not really a reason to. Um, while you bring up the models, that made me think another big evolution in 2025, I feel like, was the multimodal models. I feel like we're really starting to see um, models not just understanding and generating text, but images and voice, like audio. All of these different capabilities are coming together and they're becoming really cohesive. Um, I've been generating AI art for, I think, 5 years now. And when I first started, they were just like blurry colors.
Mm.
But Gemini's Nano Banana Pro is like blowing my mind. It's it's capable of generating images that um, we you wouldn't believe. I guess like it looks completely realistic. Um, so I think that's kind of an expectation going forward is that a lot of these models are going to become more and more multimodal, and maybe we start architecting our systems to think in that way. Um, like in one application I'm building, there's some like processes that have to take speech and then turn it into text and like transformations like that back and forth. So multiple API calls and classes and things, but maybe eventually there will just be one model that I can call and pass that data in and it can figure it out.
Can you stream video into Nano Banana? Or is it just images, generating images?
I haven't thought of that. I feel like theoretically that's possible. I
Yeah.
think it mainly generates images, but if you had enough compute, I feel like, do you have an idea? What's the thinking there?
Well, it's like I'm always trying to explain
Yeah.
to AI what's happening.
Oh.
You know, like when I'm going through, or like even if maybe, let's say, like for a generic example, I'm trying to fix something in my engine. uh, if I could just take a video
Mm-hmm.
and send that to any AI model I want, and it be able to look at all
Mm-hmm.
the entire video and then tell me what's going wrong, I would love that. But I feel like right now, I think mostly they just take in images.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe the next step in multimodality is videos as well, like long form videos, and being able to like look at those videos and
Yeah.
tell me what's happening.
Yeah. So I haven't been using ChatGPT for a while now, but a few years ago, I was using the mobile app version and you could do like a live stream video. So that capability is definitely possible. I'm guessing that it isn't actually ingesting video and that it's just taking like rapid screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is the direction things are going to go. Like it's not just you describing the problem to the AI, but maybe you give the AI access to see your screen and it's right there with you and it's able to understand the images just as well as you are.
If they could include that in Claude Code, just
Mm.
instead of me having to explain what's going wrong, I'm like, I can just talk to my computer and click around and be like, hey, you see that this delete button isn't working?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually looks at the actions that I'm taking and then
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh yeah, let me go and fix that. Like that'd be a huge win for me.
I think that will be one of the things we see more in 2026 is general computer use. Um, we can achieve that with the CLI, like an AI can do very much on a computer with a CLI. Um, but graphical user interfaces like web pages and browsers, those are designed for people, and there's gonna it's gonna require some bridging. But I believe I did see, I think it was a few months ago. Um, it looks like Anthropic is doing some experiments. I think privately, like locked down for now, but experiments with enabling Claude in the browser. So just complete control over the browser, and it's able to perform tasks, probably long form, like long horizon tasks eventually for multiple hours. Who knows? Um, I think we're seeing that with ChatGPT's agent mode,
Atlas
Atlas. Yeah,
comment.
we're getting more examples. So I think that's definitely something coming in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable because the way in which people use the internet is
Mm-hmm.
through browsers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we can't totally reinvent how we interact with the information, and because there's millions of websites out there. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to build the agent
Mm-hmm.
mode in browsers. And what you're saying about Claude, like they have the extension in Chrome right now. And
Really?
I I think I used it the other day to compare flights,
Oh,
just like
okay.
to try it out.
Yeah.
I mean, and it worked, but I was like, it takes forever.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big barrier, I think, is that efficiency level. I'm not sure if we'll ever have an AI being just as efficient at using a browser as it is with a CLI, just because it is like a natural language being in a way.
It's the delays and the connection errors
Mm-hmm.
and the elements that you have to click. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's nowhere near as easy to use as a CLI.
Mm-hmm. So I think that is another one of my big predictions for 2026 is that we will see command line interfaces being one of the first priorities to creating new software. It's like a first class citizen of the software, enabling AI to be able to use the software from a command line interface instead of having to make it use a browser or other GUIs.
I think that gets into my prediction. One of my biggest predictions for 2026 is by the end of 2026, we won't be writing any code by hand
Mm.
going into 2027. And we're close. Like right now, I'm close to not writing any code by hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's some things currently that I might as well just do because it's faster than trying to explain all the edge cases to AI or the knowledge. But I mean, by 2027, we may have Cloud Opus 5.5 or GPT-6. I don't know. And at this rate, the linear progression that we've been seeing, especially with like some of the research posts on like long horizon tasks, I don't expect to be writing any code
Mm-hmm. Do you,
myself.
when you say writing code, do you expect to still be reviewing the code? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think reviewing, maybe, I think people think of reviewing code as code reviews and PRs in GitHub and Bitbucket, GitLab, but
Traditionally, yeah.
traditionally, but reviewing code is not, it's going to be, and it's always been this process of like, every time an agent does something, you review it. You don't review it at the end
Mm-hmm.
when the PR is created.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to make sure that it's doing things properly, you're reviewing things as it goes. Because I always find things that it's doing during the
Oh, yeah.
process where I'm like, oh, hey, you gotta like, you just disabled TypeScript, like we, and that's one of the biggest issues I have with TypeScript is like Claude can't disable Rust.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
has to compile.
It has to.
But with TypeScript, it can disable a lot of the things that are causing errors.
Mm-hmm.
And so you still have to review the code. And so I'm expecting I'll always have to review the output and kind of keep track of what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe by the end of 2026, I expect that I won't have to give it as much input as to what it's doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that it will just be able to get a few more things right that it's not able to get right now in terms of instruction following. And so I can just focus on what does the architecture look like
Mm-hmm.
and like what tech stack are we using and how can we get faster in this area and like a strict no skeleton loading pages architecture, things like that. Like taste is going to be a huge thing
Mm-hmm.
in 2026 when you don't have to write code by hand. People still want things that feel and are fast and feel good, and the design is tasteful and authentic, and it's not like this purple gradient website,
Yeah.
like what AI creates currently.
That was, yeah. Yeah. I wanted to touch on something. You said that you should be reviewing it step by step along the way. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions or misunderstandings when people first try to work with AI is that they just tell it what to do and then they walk away and hope everything is good. But when I'm talking to it and giving it a task, I am sitting there staring at its thinking, and I I almost want like a big red button sitting on my desk at this point because I interrupt it so often. I'm like, nope, that's wrong. We want to do it this way. So yeah, I think that might be one of the signs of progression, like you're saying, is that it's able to work for longer, maybe in these Ralph Wiggum style loops where it's not getting it first, it's not getting it right the first time, um, and we have to interrupt it less because it's able to see where it needs to improve.
It'll write a function, and I'm big into effect right now, as you know,
Yeah.
but it'll write a function and it won't use effect. But I have in the agents MD, like you strictly have to use effect in this repository. And I will say in the prompt, use effect, and it will still write a function not using effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that piece where I'm explicitly stating what I want and it's not following it. I hope that they solve in the
Yeah.
next year, because I'm okay. Like if it's not doing something that I didn't explicitly say, like that's my fault. It's not the agent's fault because I didn't say that I wanted it to do that.
Right.
So in 2026, I hope they solve and fix some of those problems.
It's easy to assume that that's a context problem, but it might not be because we have pretty large context windows at this point, and a prompt of like use effect to implement this shouldn't be too confusing. But I'm almost wondering if we need more multi-agent systems where we have an implementer and it's more of this loop like I was talking about. Like we have an implementer that writes the code, and then there's another agent that just checks for did you use effect properly? And it's not able to proceed until that agent says yes. Because maybe we're asking them to perform too many roles at once. I I saw a research project from Anthropic that I really loved where they are challenging Claude to operate a store in their company. Um, so it's got its own inventory that it has to manage, and people come up and buy goods, and they can talk to the owner and request different things. Um, when it was just one agent, when it was just Claude the shopkeeper, it was not able to stay profitable. It was much more concerned with having people feel good about the shop experience and stuff like that. So it would lose money. But as the experiment progressed, they added another agent to the system. So it's now a multi-agent system where there's a shopkeeper Claude and there's a business owner Claude. And the business owner was actually able to keep the shopkeeper in check enough that it's now profitable, like internally. And I think that's an amazing example of the power of multi-agent systems. I think we'll probably see more of that in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's something you have to set up yourself right now.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a big barrier is power users will do it. But if you just want to come into Claude Code and type your prompt out, by default, you don't have any like sub agents like that. I mean, maybe they'll come out with some good implementations in the next year to just kind of have some good defaults. Like here's a software architect, here's a code reviewer, here's an implementer. But I totally agree. Like in Claude Code right now, I have this prompt that I give it when I want it to review code, and I say, "You're a senior software engineer who hates this implementation, and do a git diff and provide me some feedback." And it's not that it's like a software engineer who hates the implementation because he wants it a different way, but he hates it because there's a lot of issues wrong. And so Claude, I'll give that prompt to it and it will pull up like 25 major issues that was wrong with the implementation in terms of like edge cases missed, that if I just ask Claude like, "Hey, do a code review. Did you miss anything?" It won't bring up. It has to be you hate this implementation, find issues wrong with it. And then it gets into this mind space where it's like, "Oh, okay." And it finds so many things wrong with the code that a typical just quick prompt saying do code review doesn't find.
I think that's an amazing example of prompt engineering we see so much the give it a role of you're a software engineer, here's your task. I haven't thought of priming it like that where it's like you already hate the implementation. I really love that. And I think that kind of thinking where you have to put yourself in the shoes of the agent, as silly as that sounds, like you really do have to think how what perspective do you want this agent to have to the finest detail.
Hmm.
That's a really cool example.
There's a few others I use. Like I'll do a debate panel when I'm unsure about a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell Claude, bring in 6 to 8 experts with they'll they should all have different roles and they should all care about different things about the system and have them debate. And so it will come up with names and what their role is. And then it will have like this dialogue as if you're reading a book about them debating about this topic. And then by the end, they come to a consensus on what like a good design decision is. And then I'll read through that and see what like they
Mm-hmm.
were talking about and look at the decision that they came to and see if that's something that I agree with or if we should go a different direction. So like that is another one. And then I think the final one I use is like asking it to ask me questions
Mm-hmm.
until it's satisfied with the implementation. And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll ask me like 60, 70 questions about what it should do when it's implementing this feature, like my opinions on what I want the system to behave like. Whereas if I don't ask it that, it just assumes all of these things
Mm-hmm.
that I may not have wanted. So those are my 3 main ones right now, which lends to the multi-agent architecture. But I'm just doing it manually at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should set up some sub agents and roles in my system for that.
I think it's so interesting the way you describe those processes because it's so different from traditional software engineering like 4 years ago. It's completely different. Um, and it feels like almost doing philosophy. Like you're having to understand all of the ambiguities and you're having to have these like long form debates, essentially. Like you're having these AI debate each other. I'm curious if you just stumbled upon these methodologies or if you've like been studying something. Like how
Yeah.
should people think about this new paradigm?
For the agent debate panel, that came from a tweet that I read from Andre Kaparthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, he mentioned how, because he's got a lot of experience in how agents and AI actually works and
Mm-hmm.
behaves. He was like, if you ask it a question, it will only be able to respond from it one point of view. And but if you ask it and create this debate panel, um, it'll be able to take on different roles and think about things from different perspectives. So I didn't have a prompt for that. I ended up just creating a prompt for that, and it worked really well. But the other two, I just scroll through Twitter, and people are like, "Hey, this worked really well," and then I'll just bookmark it and try it out later. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's, I mean, I'm not coming up with a lot of things from scratch, but I mean, opening yourself up to what other people are doing, I think
Yeah,
is the best thing you can do at this point.
absolutely. Yeah, I'd completely agree. And I think if you don't have those connections, like we can try to build them around you and like internally, like we're trying to do with the roundtable things. Like
Mm-hmm.
these conversations are very important, and you won't know you won't know what other methods people are using until you ask. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you don't, if you're stuck using GitHub Copilot at this point and you've not, maybe if you've not been on Twitter or like LinkedIn, I don't know, and you haven't seen the hype around Claude Code, you may be like, okay, this is it. Like, this is all the AI is. And then you don't know that Claude Code is out there in a Ralph Wiggum loop
Mm-hmm.
building people's SaaS applications from scratch. Um, so it's like, I think maybe the most important thing people can do in 2026 is just go out there and find people who are posting about these topics, like build a community so that you can keep yourself informed. And I mean, yeah, it's what we're doing internally, trying to do. So,
I think related to that, something else I see that kind of inhibits people's interactions with AI is that it's almost a closed mindedness in a way. Maybe not closed mindedness, but I think people are underestimating what the AI can do. And like they will forget that they can actually just talk to it and ask it questions like, hey, are you able to do this? So I think that's another thing going forward is like we really want to approach these things as entirely new and not get comfortable assuming we know what they can do.
mhm.
I wanted to change topics a little bit, thinking still for like 2026 predictions. Something that we've seen for a long time in science fiction is robots. But really, I don't think the hardest part about robots is like figuring out all the motors and the actuators and things like that, but it's the intelligence inside of the robots. And it seems to me like we are getting to a point with AI where we are going to see a lot more robots that are able to move around in the world and actually function. Um,
Yeah, it's have you seen, I don't know his name. It's like a lead. He was the former head researcher at Meta, and he left when they acquired uh, like Scale.
is it Lacoon?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Yan.
Yeah. He thinks that like we're LLMs are great, right? But he believes that we're not going to get to like true AGI ASI until we have like spatial
Mm-hmm.
models, and I think robots provide that ability to train on spatial information,
Mm-hmm.
and robots are going to be huge in the next, I don't know if next year, but like next 5 years, like
Yeah.
when they actually spend time in these spatial worlds
Yes. Yeah.
training on information.
They probably won't become mainstream in 2026,
Yeah.
but I'm starting to see the rumblings of robots are coming.
Hmm.
And I think you mentioned world models.
Yeah, world models. Yeah.
I think you mentioned like getting that feedback loop in the real world. I think we're gonna start seeing that. How do I say this? I think AI using browsers and operating a computer in a way that is outside of their natural language. I think that process is going to set the grounds for more AI learning how to operate in unknown territories.
Yeah, and it's going to be important that they learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like just being able to pick up a cup
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out how to use its
Mm-hmm.
robotic body is probably going to take a lot of training compute, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. But yeah, browsers are going to kind of help in that next step
Gonna pave the way.
because it's not text. I mean, it's kind of text, but it's more of this visual
Mm-hmm.
aspect that they couldn't automate until the multimodality of the models was ingrained into the actual model that was being used.
Mm-hmm.
Because without it being able to take screenshots and then see where the elements are, it can't know what to click on.
Yeah. It could try to infer from the code, but then at some point it's like trying to render it in its imagination in a way. Like it's trying to assume this is what it will be. Yeah.
I think one of the things, and love your opinions on this in 2025, is people think of 2025 as like the year of the agent, which it was, but I think it was the year for RL reasoning. And I don't think it could have ever been the year of the agent unless we had significant jumps in reasoning, because O1 came out in September of 2024, but then R1 came out in January. I think it's January 25th, 2025. And we didn't really see like this jump in capabilities from the models
Mm-hmm.
until they actually had these reasoning capabilities. And so I think of 2025 as the year of reasoning rather than the year of agents. Even though we got a bunch of agent implementations, I think reasoning unlocked that ability. But we'll love your opinion on it.
That's entirely possible. Yeah. I don't think I'd fully considered that, but I can see what you're saying. Like there's a feedback loop that gets unlocked when the agent first reasons about it internally and then responds. There
Because I mean, with what is it? Opus, people are getting a lot of great things out of it, but it's when you're like ultra think,
mm-hmm.
that turns it up to max reasoning, or like GPT 5.2. If you look at the benchmarks, 5.2, the base default model versus 5.2 extra high scores drastically different
Mm-hmm.
on the benchmarks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, if we didn't have reasoning, we'd be all the way down here on these benchmarks. But now that we do have reasoning, we can do these like long horizon tasks
Mm-hmm.
because it's able to actually reason about what it's doing. And so like it's entirely possible that reasoning unlocked agents. But I mean, we'll never know truly. I mean, we could have not done reasoning and still gotten agent implementations.
Yeah. I think technically you could, but what I'm kind of exploring is like that process of first it does something and then it reviews it. Like that's essentially what an agent is it's like working in this loop, right? And that first step is thinking and then reacting to not only the prompt but what you thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is that kind of deeper pattern of reflection, or I think they call it like react, maybe. There was like reason, act. There's some kind of loop.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's very complicated. Um, I would be interested to see like maybe designing an agent with UltraThink permanently enabled versus an agent that just does like first shot prompting without thinking. That could be interesting.
Yeah, like compare the results side by side, give it the same exact problem, see
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Or maybe a multi-agent system where you have some thinking for the first implementation, and then the review agent is always UltraThink, and it thinks for a long time. And then it's like, here, revise this, and it does the implementation, and then UltraThink again. There's a lot to explore there.
Yeah.
I love thinking about those different architectures and possibilities.
I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on maybe not specifically agent or AI predictions in 2026, but I've been focused on what are my thoughts on where everything's going philosophically.
Hmm.
And so been writing some blog posts. I think you've been reading them. I wrote one on like beauty and infinite software, where infinite software is coming. Like the cost to create software is drastically reduced. And like, so the barrier to create your own website, I mean, is just a prompt away.
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty in those websites and the beauty in what you're creating is still up to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the other things like feedback loops, I think are huge for agents. Getting an agent into a quick feedback loop allows you to actually create something faster. And so it's like, I think a lot of these things that we're thinking about for agents and for AI are actually lessons that we can teach ourselves and take away and take into our own lives,
Yeah.
So I'd love to see what your like hot takes are on like philosophical ideas that you have.
There's a lot there. Yeah. Philosophically, there's a lot to unpack. I think the first thing, like you mentioned, we can take these lessons and learn them for ourselves. Like, um, I had a coworker say that when you're kind of designing these agents and how you work with them, you're essentially building your ideal team, which I
Mhm.
think is a really cool way to think about it.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never thought about it like that.
Um, Philosophically, The first thing I want to say is that I don't I don't think people should have such a strong attachment to their identity of like I am this role, because already my role has changed drastically, and I think we're going to continue seeing roles change. And if you have a lot of your self-worth attached to like doing this particular thing very well, it might be uncomfortable to go through this change. So I think with that, I've been really trying to emphasize flexibility and adaptability to people, um, being comfortable with the unknown and really learning how to learn. So I think those are some first philosophical thoughts. Um, what haven't I touched on? Could you remind me?
I think there's beauty in infinite software.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. Um, that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Infinite software, and it's hard to think about. It's hard to talk about. When people are worried or fearful for like an AI future because they might be disrupted or various reasons, I keep coming back to imagining what a world looks like where we can just build software that we need. And like, that's a good world. Like
Mm-hmm.
the reason I became a software engineer was I realized how powerful software is. And in a world where we can create software infinitely, like that's a beautiful world to
Yep.
me. And like holding that idea is like a North Star. Um, I think it's achievable just from the progress we've seen already. Infinite is a big word, right? So
Yeah,
it's
it's a
hard to
big,
say
yeah.
infinity is achievable or something, but I think we will see like the products that we want to build will become more and more complex, and we'll just be able to ride this wave of complexity, building bigger and bigger things.
Yeah, it's like I think the other day I opened a ticket in an open source repository asking for a feature. And I said I would implement it in their repository, and they closed it, saying it's not on their roadmap. They don't have the capacity to actually
Hmm.
implement that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, maybe soon all of those things that we want these applications or libraries to do
Mm-hmm.
will finally have the capacity to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we're
Yeah.
not running out of things to do. We've always just been running out of the capacity to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where infinite software comes in. We'll finally be able to build all the features and fix all the bugs and build things like, I need a new software for my fridge tonight. And you'll just
Yeah.
build it.
Exactly that. I think a lot of people have grown up with a mental concept of platforms where you log into some software and then that's all you can really do. Like the platform gives you your capabilities and you can work within this walled garden. But where AI and the democratization of software creation is kind of inverting that, where if you want some software, like a little tool or something, you can go build it. And I want to empower people to be able to build those tools that they need, because not because of some platform wants to extract value, but because it's aligned with their philosophy, like it's aligned with their values and what they want to do. I think that personal empowerment is going to change the world.
It'll start taking it into people's hands that are not software engineers.
Yeah.
Software engineers won't go away. Software developers, and there's always been this, like, what is a software developer versus a software engineer? Maybe they're the same thing, but I think what I'll say about software developers is traditionally, I think the way I think about a software developer is they take a ticket and they implement the code to solve the problem. Whereas a software engineer is the one that's maybe even creating like they're distilling the problem down to
Yeah.
these core ideas and and solving the problems of a business or
Yeah,
an
exactly.
individual. Like software developer maybe has always just been about I'm here to implement the code that solves the problem. Where
Mhm.
engineers have always been I'm here to solve problems. And the way
Mhm.
in which I solve those problems may change, but you hired me to solve problems and that's what I'm going to do.
As best as possible.
Yeah.
I want to bring that back to vibe coding versus agentic development. And like I mentioned with the big red stop button, that's kind of how I see the difference is if you're vibe coding, you're telling it to do something and then you're hands off from that point and you're not involved. Maybe you're not even properly validating it. You're just awaiting for a result. Whereas agentic development is you're aware of its coding, you're aware of its thinking, and if at any point it deviates from what you see in your mind, you interrupt it and you correct it.
Yeah. It's almost like vibe coding. I wish vibe coding never came up as a term
Right.
because it almost destroyed the idea of
Mm,
just coding with agents. Because
yeah.
every time you're like, yeah, I implemented this feature from scratch with Opus. It's like, oh, you vibe coded it. Like, no, like I spent hours prompting it and thinking about the solution and trying out different things. But vibe coding came about and now it's like, okay, how do we actually reframe people's minds away from vibe
Mm-hmm.
coding?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it was great, but also a detriment.
But at the same time, I think I think there will be a place for vibe coding, just not in the professional realm.
Mm-hmm.
Like as I kind of said with democratization, the barrier to entry will be lower, so people can just talk to it and be like, "I want this thing, I want that thing," and I think that's okay. But we just we do need to understand the difference between these two approaches.
Yeah. Yeah, one's just more professional in nature because it's needed
Mm-hmm.
in enterprise software.
Mm-hmm. And there's different stakes, I feel like if you're exploring GLSL shader art, you don't need to fully understand the math. Like
Mm,
that's totally valid to explore art in that way. But if you're gonna engineer a system that people rely on and they potentially expose their data to, like there needs to be safety guards and reviews and yeah.
like an accounting aggregation pipeline to pay out. I'm just thinking about like the
Mm-hmm.
software that I built from scratch at Truck Stop that
Yeah.
pays truckers what they need. And if you get one calculation wrong, it's
Yeah.
going to be bad. So it's like that. You don't want to vibe code because, yeah, there's some consequences there if you get it wrong,
For sure.
But I mean, you can use the models to build out software like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always like validation, reviewing, making sure that the calculations are correct. You know, we can still build high quality
Yeah.
software that people rely on with agents, just not vibe coding.
Yeah. And I will say there's even stages to it. Like I've explored prototypes that I knew I was just going to throw away. Like I just wanted to validate a concept and not the
Mm.
software itself. So I was comfortable vibe coding that in Python, even if I knew it wasn't going to be performant after scaling. It's like you can explore different stages and gradually harden your software and make it more robust.
Yeah, you just brought up what I think people should think about in
Yeah.
2026. They should think of these tools like they're a scientist and it's your laboratory because now you're able to run experiments. And I've always thought that my job is more scientific
Mm-hmm.
than engineering based.
Mm-hmm.
I have these hypotheses of what I think the problem is, and
Mm-hmm.
then I have to go and validate
Mm-hmm.
that assumption. And sometimes I'm wrong, and then I have to go come up with something new. That loop is faster than ever. And our ability to create experiments and then validate those experiments is faster than ever. And so it's like, okay, 2026 should be about how can you experiment more and how can you think of your job less as like, I'm good, just going to solve the problem that this ticket is asking of me, and more so think about how can I experiment with different problem sets now that I'm able to, maybe do 6 or 7 different implementations and then pick the best one. Like I think I want to try to reframe people's thinking about their approach to this job in more of that scientific aspect now that we have tools like this.
I really like that you bring that up. I think I've kind of unconsciously been operating like that, but we should help make that more explicit for people, because even if you're not aware of it, I guess like something I like to say is everybody is a philosopher. They might just not be aware of it. Similarly, everyone is a scientist in a way. We have hypotheses and we invalidate them or validate them. I'm going to think about how to make that more explicit, or maybe how to cultivate that perspective in people. That's really curious. We are getting close to time though.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah. I think we'll end with the kind of pie in the sky, maybe is the right term, maybe not. I saw a prediction from IBM, and they said that 2026 will be the first time a quantum computer can outperform a classical computer. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't tie directly into AI or the things we've been talking about, but at the same time, it is, because AI is trained on these compute platforms, and it's possible if we figure out quantum in the next 5 or 10 years, that might unlock an entirely new level of scaling. So for those listening, we are still early. You are not behind, and just keep learning, keep paying attention.
My last thoughts are, your role is going to change in the next year. So find resources, books, take courses, get good at design, amplify your taste.
Yeah.
I think don't be afraid of things changing. Just take a proactive approach to what is your job going to look like in the next 6 months to a year, and then prepare for that. Because things are going to change. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how yet. These are just our predictions. Yep. But one thing we can say for sure is things are going to change. And so just be ready for it. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this Time Tec podcast. If you'd like to learn more about what we can offer you, please visit our website, intimetech.com, where you'll be able to see the different capabilities and technologies we could provide you in your business. Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow us to get more amazing content like this. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.